The knife came first. It appeared in the streetlight like a blade of promise, silver and sharp. The man holding it smiled. "That's a nice bag. Give it to me." She should have screamed. She should have run. Instead, she backed away, her keys biting into her palm, her mind moving faster than her body. 3 men. Coordinated. The way they moved suggested this wasn't their first time. She was calculating escape routes when the largest one stepped in front of her, cutting off the only clear path. "Please," she said. Her voice was steadier than her hands. "Just take it. Take whatever you want." "See? Smart girl," the one with the knife said. "Just hand it over and nobody gets hurt." She reached for the bag strap when a car screamed around the corner. It mounted the sidewalk with violence, tires screeching against asphalt, moving like it was hunting. The 3 men scattered instinctively. The car came to a stop between her and them, and a man emerged with the kind of slow, controlled grace that suggested he'd choreographed the moment in his mind 1,000 times before. He was tall. Impossibly tall. His suit cost more than her annual salary. His face was sharp, all cutting edges and dark eyes that seemed to calculate distances and weaknesses in a single glance. When he looked at her, she felt pinned. When he looked at the 3 men, she saw something predatory move behind his eyes. "Step away from her," he said. His voice was quiet. That's what made it terrifying. The largest man, the one with the knife, laughed. "This doesn't concern you, buddy. Walk away." The man didn't walk away. What happened next occurred in seconds. He moved with inhuman fluidity. The first man went down, his arm at an angle no arm should bend. The second man pulled his knife, but it was over before he understood it had started. The man disarmed him and used the blade itself to drop the third man with a clean strike to the shoulder. It wasn't a fight. It was a demonstration of what he was capable of. When it was over, all 3 men lay on the pavement, groaning and bleeding. The man wiped his hand on his already ruined suit jacket and turned to look at her. His eyes were dark and unreadable. "You should not be walking alone at this hour," he said. She was trembling. Thank you. Thank you, I don't know what would have." "Get in the car." "What?" "No, I can call the police, I can." "You can get in the car, or you can wait here for the police to arrive and spend 4 hours giving statements, and these men will have friends who'll try again tomorrow." He opened the passenger door. "I'm not asking. The decision is yours, but decide now." Every rational part of her screamed that getting in a car with a stranger who'd just destroyed 3 men was suicide. But every survival instinct screamed louder. She got in the car. It was only after the vehicle was moving, only when she saw her reflection in the window with her messenger bag still clutched against her chest, that she realized she didn't even know his name. She didn't know anything except that he'd saved her, and that terrified her more than the knife had. His name was Min-jun Park. She learned this from the news articles on her phone as he drove through the city. Korean national, 34. Legitimate shipping empire that existed as cover for darker acquisitions. The photographs showed him in tuxedos at charity galas, always alone, always with that same expression, controlled, precise, dangerous. "You know who I am," he said. It wasn't a question. "I do now," she replied quietly. "Good. That means you understand what's about to happen won't make sense, but it will be necessary." Her name was Naomi Drew. She was 24, an authentication specialist at the Meridian Consignment House. She'd spent the last 3 years building a life small enough to fit in a studio apartment, working 60-hour weeks, going home to nothing. She was supposed to be ordinary. Safe. Invisible. She was none of those things anymore. The penthouse was a study in controlled minimalism. Concrete floors. Floor-to-ceiling windows framing the city like a possession. Furniture that looked like it cost more than her apartment, arranged with museum-like precision. There were no photographs, no personal effects, nothing that suggested a human actually lived here rather than merely occupied the space. He was Min-jun Park. She recognized him from financial journals, Korean national, 34, owned a shipping empire that was legitimate on paper. What the papers didn't discuss was the other business. The one that moved through underground channels, the one that operated in the gray spaces where the law couldn't reach. He was a fence. A sophisticated one. He acquired stolen pieces from museums, private collections, galleries. He authenticated them, cleaned them, legitimized them for wealthy collectors who asked no questions. It was how he'd built his empire. It was also his cover for something darker. He was part of the Korean mafia network that operated across the Pacific. Not a street-level operator, but someone in the upper echelon. Someone with reach and power and connections that transcended borders. Sit, he instructed, pointing to a white sofa that looked like it had never been sat upon. Who are you? Why did you? You were about to be robbed. I prevented that. Now you're safe here until morning. He disappeared into another room and returned with a glass of water and a first aid kit. Your hand is bleeding. She looked down. She hadn't even noticed she'd scraped her palm on the pavement during the chaos. He cleaned the wound with a gentleness that contradicted everything she'd just witnessed. His hands were careful, methodical, the hands of someone accustomed to handling delicate things and making difficult decisions. When he finished, he sat across from her on a matching white chair, watching her like she might disappear. What's your name? He asked. Naomi Drew. Naomi. He said her name like he was testing it out, learning its shape. You work for the Meridian Consignment House. Authentication specialist. You graduated from Sotheby's Institute. You have an apartment in Sunset Park that you rarely leave. You eat the same lunch 4 days a week from the same deli. She felt her blood go cold. How do you know all that? Because 3 months ago, you authenticated a Monet sketch for a client I care about. That sketch was stolen from a museum in Brussels. You identified it as genuine and signed off on the provenance. That information mattered to me. He leaned back in his chair. I'm what you'd call a fence. I acquire pieces that have been stolen from institutions and private collectors. I use my shipping empire as cover. The pieces come through my warehouses. I have them authenticated by the best in the business, people like you. Then I sell them to collectors who have enough money and discretion to ask no questions. That's illegal. Very. He smiled without warmth. But more importantly, I'm connected to something larger than just art theft. I'm part of an organization that operates across multiple continents. We move more than art. We move information, resources, people. And I've spent the last 2 years building a case against a man named Choi who leads a faction within that organization. Choi killed my mother. He did it as a business decision, nothing personal. Just leverage against my father, who was also in the organization. He paused, letting that sink in. Then, tonight, you were about to be robbed by men who work for Choi. They targeted you deliberately. They knew who you were. They were testing my attention, trying to see if I'm distracted. If I'm weak. I don't understand. You're connected to my world now whether you want to be or not. Someone tried to hurt you to prove a point. That means I need to keep you close enough to protect you. He stood and walked to a desk. I need your help. And in exchange, I'll keep you alive. I don't want to be part of your world. Neither did I, he said quietly. But we rarely get to choose what world we're born into. We only get to choose what we do once we're aware we're in it. The authentication work started the next morning. He had 8 pieces, a Qing dynasty vase, a medieval illuminated manuscript, Korean ceramics, a Rembrandt etching. Each one was extraordinary. Each one was stolen. He set up a workspace in his study with specialized lighting and equipment, but before she began, she asked the question that changed everything. Why did you investigate me? She said, standing at the window of his study. You knew everything about me. Where I lived. What I ate. Where I worked. You've been watching me for months. Why? He was quiet for a long time. She could see him deciding whether to tell her the truth. 3 months ago, he said finally, a Monet sketch appeared in a private collection here in the city. It had been stolen from a museum in Brussels 5 years ago. The piece surfaced through a shipment that came through one of my facilities. I had it authenticated. He paused. You authenticated it. I remember. It was beautiful. The provenance was complicated, he finished. Because the man who sold it to my client wasn't supposed to have it. The man who brought it to your consignment house for initial assessment wasn't supposed to be moving art through legitimate channels. They were testing whether my organization was still operational, whether I was still in the game. She understood what he was saying. Your offense. I acquire stolen pieces. I authenticate them through people like you. I sell them to collectors. It's how I maintain my position in an organization that's much larger than just art theft. He looked at her directly. The moment I realized you'd authenticated that Monet, I needed to know if you were a risk. If you'd ask questions. If you had connections to law enforcement. If you could be turned. And? You've had 3 months to come forward. You haven't. You've done your job with precision and discretion. You ask no questions about provenance. He stepped closer. You're either incorruptibly honest or you're smart enough to understand that some things are better left alone. Which am I? I wasn't sure until tonight. But you got in my car instead of screaming. You didn't call the police when you realized who I was. You asked questions, but didn't demand answers you weren't ready for. He studied her face. I think you're someone who understands that the world is more complicated than the rules suggest. She felt something shift in her chest, a mixture of fear and the strange thrill of being truly seen by someone dangerous. She worked in silence for the first 3 days, barely speaking to him beyond professional assessments. He watched her work with an intensity that should have unnerved her, but instead, she found it compelling. He brought her coffee at 3 a.m. without her asking. He noticed she was left-handed and adjusted the lighting accordingly. He was attentive in ways that felt calculated and genuine simultaneously. On the 4th day, she broke. The Monet, she said, not looking up from her magnifying glass. What happened to it? Where is it now? In a private collection. The man who owns it doesn't know its history. He just knows it's beautiful and valuable. But you know. Yes. And that doesn't bother you? That you're complicit in theft. He was quiet, watching her work. My mother was killed when I was 28. By someone connected to organized crime. By someone who decided she was worth more dead than alive as leverage against my father. The police investigated for 6 months and then closed the case. They called it gang violence. Unsolved. The man responsible still walks free. Naomi set down her tools. This was the moment. He was deciding to trust her with something real. I spent a year trying to work within the system, he continued. I hired lawyers. I pushed for reinvestigation. I gathered evidence. Then I realized that the system was designed to protect people like her killer. That justice doesn't exist for people like my mother unless someone outside the system creates it. So you became this, she said softly. I became something that people have to take seriously. Something they have to negotiate with. I became someone willing to break rules that were written to protect predators. He paused. The stolen art isn't really about the art. It's a front. It's what I use to legitimize my presence in an organization where I can actually investigate the people responsible for my mother's death. Your authentication of that Monet connected me to a shipment that came from a man named Choi. Choi is the one who killed my mother. She understood then why he'd investigated her so thoroughly. She wasn't a business opportunity. She was a potential liability. Or a potential ally. You're using me, she said. Yes, he said without hesitation. I was. I wanted to verify that you were trustworthy before I brought you into this. But that was before I met you. She asked to stay at the penthouse an extra night. She told herself it was because she was tired. In truth, it was because going back to her small apartment felt like stepping back into a world that no longer existed. She'd seen behind the curtain now. She knew what Min-jun was. She knew what she'd unknowingly been part of. More than that, she knew he'd been watching her for months. And instead of feeling violated, she felt known. Truly known in a way that terrified and exhilarated her simultaneously. He didn't ask her why she stayed. He simply gave her a drawer for her things and told her the coffee would be ready at 6 a.m. That night, unable to sleep, she found him in the study staring at a wall of photographs. A woman with his sharp features. Different ages. In museums. In galleries. Laughing at something off camera. Your mother, Naomi said. She used to say that understanding beauty was a form of prayer, he said without turning around. That if you spent long enough looking at something true and beautiful, you'd understand something about the universe. About why anything matters. She sounds extraordinary. She was. He finally looked at her. She would have hated what I've become. Or she would have understood that you're grieving. He looked back at the photographs. I'm going to find the man who killed her. I'm going to make sure he faces consequences. That's what I've built this entire operation for. Naomi realized in that moment that she wasn't just caught in his world. She was complicit in it. She'd authenticated pieces that funded his vendetta. She was part of his mission. And instead of wanting to leave, she wanted to understand it. Understand him. By the second week of staying at the penthouse, Naomi realized her apartment felt like a museum of someone else's life. She'd only gone back once to grab more clothes, and the space felt foreign. Smaller than she remembered. Like it belonged to a version of herself that no longer existed. Min-jun didn't ask her to move in. He didn't need to. She simply stopped leaving. The first time I noticed you were beautiful, Min-jun said one evening, cooking dinner in the sparse kitchen, was when you were arguing with me about the authentication process. You were correcting me, telling me I was wrong about something, and you had this look of absolute certainty. Like you didn't care that I could have hurt you. Like you only cared about the truth. She sat at the counter, watching him move through the space with unexpected grace. His sleeves were rolled up. He looked almost normal. Almost human. The first time I thought you might be human, Naomi replied, was when you cleaned my hand. Your hands had just destroyed 3 men, and then you cleaned my hand like it was the most important thing you'd ever done. He set down the knife and turned to face her fully. I've spent so long being one thing that I forgot it was possible to be anything else. What thing? She asked, though she knew. A weapon. He walked toward her. A tool for revenge. A predator. But then you looked at me without flinching, and I remembered that my mother wanted me to be a scholar. A person who contributed something beautiful to the world. And I thought maybe, with you, I could be something other than what I've become. Her heart cracked open at that moment. At the vulnerability of a dangerous man admitting that he wanted to be better. She moved closer. What do you want to become? I don't know yet, he said. But I want to figure it out with you. When he kissed her, it was tentative, like he was asking permission from her body to exist in this softer version of himself. She gave it freely. The weeks that followed were a slow dissolution of boundaries. She'd wake to find him already awake, watching her sleep like she was a work of art he was trying to understand. She'd work on authentications, and he'd bring her coffee at 3 a.m., sitting silently beside her, just present. One night, 3 weeks in, she asked him the question that had been sitting between them since the beginning. Do you love me? She said. They were lying in his bed, the only room in the penthouse that felt lived in. The only room with photographs. He didn't answer immediately. He just held her closer, his chin against her hair. I love you in a way that terrifies me, he finally said. Because loving you means I have something to lose. For the first time in my adult life, I have something worth more than my revenge. Is that bad? It's dangerous. He pulled back to look at her. For you. Being connected to me. It puts a target on your back. I'm already a target, she said. I authenticated the Monet. I'm complicit. So I might as well choose to be here. But by week 4 of month 2, everything changed. Naomi was organizing his study when she found the surveillance photos. Hidden in a locked drawer beneath legitimate business documents. Photographs of herself. Her apartment. Her mother's house. Her workplace. The images were dated, professional, comprehensive. Someone had been watching her for months. Her hands shook as she held them. She didn't confront him immediately. Instead, she spent the rest of the day in silence, her mind racing. Was he still investigating her? Was she still just a liability to manage? Was everything he'd said a lie designed to keep her compliant? That evening, when he came home, she was waiting. Who's photographing my mother? She said. Her voice was steady, but her hands were clasped so tightly her nails dug into her palms. Min-jun's entire body went still. Naomi, don't. She held up the photographs. Don't lie to me. Not now. Not after everything. Who is watching my mother? He was quiet for a long moment. Then he walked to the window and stood there, silhouetted against the city lights. Choi, he said finally. Choi's network has been tracking you since you authenticated the Monet. I didn't know at first. I only found out 2 weeks ago. The words hit her like a physical blow. And you didn't tell me? Because I was trying to figure out how to protect you without terrifying you. You're terrifying me now. Her voice cracked. You're terrifying me because you lied. You said you were keeping me safe, but you were just keeping me contained. You were using me to get to Choi, and you didn't care that my mother, she couldn't finish. The fear was too big. Min-jun turned to face her, and for the first time, she saw genuine fear in his eyes. Not fear for himself. Fear of losing her. You're right, he said. I was using you. I was investigating you. I was calculating whether you were worth the risk. He walked toward her. But that was before I fell in love with you. That was before you stopped being a variable in my operation and became the only thing that matters to me. How am I supposed to believe that? She whispered. How am I supposed to trust anything you've said? You shouldn't, he said. Not based on words. Only on what I'm about to tell you. He took a breath. Choi knows about you. He's been planning to use you as leverage against me for weeks. I've been trying to figure out how to move you, how to protect your mother, how to keep you both safe without alerting him that I know his plan. So what? You were just going to let him take me? No, he reached for her, and she didn't pull away. I was going to get you and your mother out of the city. I was going to disappear with you. I was going to give up the case against Choi, give up everything I've built, to keep you alive. Because you matter more to me than revenge. You matter more than justice. You matter more than my mother's memory. Naomi felt the tears come then. Not because she believed him, she still wasn't sure she did. But because she understood that he was telling her the truth, and that truth was that he would sacrifice everything for her. I need to know, she said. I need to know you're not going to keep using me. I need to know that I'm a person to you, not a pawn. You're not a pawn, he said. You never were. Not after the first night. You saved me, Naomi. You looked at the darkest part of me and didn't run. That's not something I could use or manipulate. That's something I had to surrender to. She looked at him for a long moment, and then she made a choice. Okay, she said. Okay. But from now on, no more secrets. No more protecting me by lying to me. I deserve to know the truth, all of it, even if it's dangerous. All of it, he agreed. That night, he told her everything. About Choi's plans. About the photographs of her mother. About the federal investigation. About the timeline. About how close they were to a breaking point. By the end of the conversation, they both understood time was running out. Across the city, in a penthouse that made Min-jun's look modest, Choi sat at a desk reviewing photographs of Naomi Drew. He was Korean, 56, with the bearing of a man who'd committed murders and never once lost sleep over it. His suit was immaculate. His hands were clean. His eyes were dead. She's perfect, his lieutenant said. Young enough to scare him. Close enough to matter. The mother is isolated in Queens. Easy access. Choi set down the photograph. He's been chasing me for 2 years. Building his case. Gathering evidence with federal agents he thinks I don't know about. He smiled without warmth. But he made one mistake. He let himself care about something. Let himself believe that love and business could coexist. They can't. When do we move? Soon, Choi said. But first, we let him know that we know. We let him stew in the knowledge that his girl is vulnerable. And then, when he's sufficiently afraid, we take her. And we force him to choose, his vendetta or her life. He picked up the photograph of Naomi again. Sometimes, he said to his lieutenant, power isn't about having weapons. It's about understanding what your enemy would sacrifice. Park would sacrifice everything for this girl. And that's exactly what we'll ask him to do. He set the photograph down and smiled. Get the team ready. We move on Thursday. They built something real in the penthouse during those 3 months, a world where a fence and an authenticator could exist together, where a man seeking revenge could find a reason to want something other than destruction. The secret museum became Naomi's project. She curated Min-jun's collection, helping him transition from acquisitions driven purely by business into preservation driven by genuine passion. Together, they created a space where stolen masterpieces could at least be properly cared for, appreciated, protected. This one, she said, pointing to a small Joseon dynasty landscape your mother would have loved. How do you know? Because she understood that beauty matters. That preserving it matters. You're not just keeping these pieces alive. You're honoring her by choosing to protect instead of destroy. He looked at the painting for a long time. I used to think the only way to honor her was to destroy everyone responsible for her death. But maybe, he turned to Naomi. Maybe there's another way. She kissed him then, a kiss that tasted like forgiveness and possibility and the strange grace of being chosen. But underneath it all, the clock was ticking. The call came on a Tuesday morning. Naomi was in the penthouse study, working on authentication documentation for the secret museum, when her phone rang. Marcus. Her boss from the Meridian consignment house. She almost didn't answer. That part of her life felt distant now, but something made her pick up. Naomi. His voice was different. Stressed. I need your help. Marcus, I'm not working right now. I told you. I know. I know you need time. But this is, he paused, and she could hear genuine desperation. We have a collector liquidating a major part of his collection. Monet, Caravaggio, several Korean and Japanese masters. The authentication has to be impeccable. The provenance verification has to be perfect. And the only person I trust to do this is you. Marcus. I'm not asking you to come back to work. This is a one-time thing. Friday and Saturday. 2 days, maybe 3. You come in, you do what you do better than anyone else I know, and then you're gone. But I need you. This collection needs you. She closed her eyes. She could hear the genuine need in his voice, not manipulation, but real respect. He believed in her expertise in a way that mattered. I'll think about it, she said. The collector arrives Friday. I need an answer by Wednesday. He hung up. Naomi sat in the study for hours, the phone still in her hand. Min-jun found her there as the sun was setting, staring out at the city below. What happened? He asked. She could hear the shift in his voice. He'd learned to read her silences. My boss called. From the consignment house. She turned to face him. They have a major collection that needs authentication. High-level pieces. He's asking me to do it Friday and Saturday. She watched him absorb this. Watched the careful calculation happen behind his eyes. What do you want to do? He asked. It wasn't what she expected. Not immediately protective. Just asking. I don't know, she said honestly. Part of me wants to stay here and never look back. But another part of me, she stopped. That was my life. That was who I was. And he's asking because he thinks I'm the best. Not because he's desperate for anyone. Because he needs me specifically. Min-jun walked to the window and stood beside her, silent, giving her space to think. If I don't go, she continued, it looks like I disappeared. Like something happened. Choi's watching, right? If I vanish without explanation. It looks like something forced the disappearance, Min-jun finished quietly. It looks like I hid you. So I should go. I think you should, he said. But not because I'm telling you to. Because you want to close that chapter on your own terms. She looked at him. What about Thursday? I need my professional kit from my apartment. My brushes, my magnifying glasses, my documentation tools. They're at the apartment. Then we go Thursday, he said. Quick visit. In and out. I'll have men watching the building. Will it be safe? Yes. He said it with absolute certainty. I'll be downstairs. You go up, you get what you need, 15 minutes maximum. My men will be positioned inside and out. Nothing happens to you. She nodded. She believed him. His confidence was absolute, and she'd learned to trust that. Okay, she said. Okay. I'll tell Marcus yes. But I need to get my tools Thursday first. Min-jun pulled her close. Thursday, you get your closure. Friday, you close that door forever. And then you come home to me. She held on to him, breathing in the familiar scent of him, understanding that this was the last thread connecting her to her old life. After Friday, there was no going back. Thursday came gray and cold. Min-jun drove her to her building himself. The car was nondescript, a rental, nothing that would draw attention. He pulled to the curb outside her apartment building. 15 minutes, he said. I'm serious. I know. She kissed him. I'll be fast. She saw his men as she entered the building, one pretending to read a newspaper in the lobby, another standing near the street corner with an earpiece. They acknowledged her with the smallest of nods. The apartment was exactly as she'd left it 3 months ago. Frozen in time. Small, cluttered, full of the detritus of a life she no longer lived. She moved quickly through the rooms, gathering her professional kit into her messenger bag. Brushes, magnifying glasses, documentation tools, the physical manifestations of who she used to be. She was zipping the bag when her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Her blood went cold. The message contained photographs. Her mother at work, in the pharmacy, unaware. And another photo. Her mother walking home from work. And another. Her mother sleeping in her bed. No message. No demands. Just photographs proving that they were watching. That they could reach her family anytime they wanted. Her hands shook as she stared at the images. This was different than the surveillance photos she'd found in Min-jun's drawer. These were fresh. Current. Taken in the last few days. Proof that Choi's network had tightened. That the window was closing. She needed to leave. She needed to tell Min-jun. She was heading for the door when she heard it, footsteps on the stairs. Multiple people. Moving fast. Not casual. Not random. Not her protection team coming to check on her. Something was wrong. In that moment, Naomi understood. The men she thought were Min-jun's protection weren't his men at all. Or they'd been turned. Or Min-jun's surveillance had been compromised. She looked around the small apartment for an escape route, but there was only one entrance. One exit. The window was on the 4th floor. She had 5 seconds. The footsteps reached her door. She lunged for her phone to call Min-jun, to warn him, to tell him something was wrong. But the door was already opening. He was still in the car outside the building, watching the entrance, his eyes never leaving the lobby. 30 seconds past the 15-minute mark, he was about to get out and go up himself when the call came through. Unknown number. Every instinct screamed at him to ignore it. Instead, he answered. The voice on the other end was rough, weathered by cigarettes and violence. It was a voice he recognized. Choi's lieutenant. We have heard, the voice said. The girl. The authentication specialist. The one you've been keeping in your penthouse like she's your personal treasure. Min-jun's blood turned to ice. Everything else disappeared. The car. The street. The world narrowed to a single point. Naomi was gone. If you hurt her, he started, but the voice cut him off. We're not going to hurt her. Not yet anyway. The line went silent, then images flooded his phone. Surveillance photographs. Her mother watering plants in the front yard of her home. Her mother walking into the pharmacy where she worked, unaware of the camera pointed at her. Her mother undressing in her bedroom at night, unaware that someone had been inside her home while she slept. These are from yesterday, the voice continued. We can take new ones anytime. We can make them permanent anytime. You understand. He understood perfectly. The kind of understanding that made his hands shake with rage. What do you want? His voice was flat, controlled, but beneath it was the rumble of a predator about to kill. The Choi acquisition. You stop it. You stand down. You walk away from everything you've been building for the last 2 years. You do that, the girl stays alive. Her mother stays alive. Everyone gets to keep breathing. The voice paused, letting the threat hang in the air like smoke. You don't stand down. If you try anything clever, if you go to the police, we'll send her back to you in pieces. And then we'll visit her mother and explain to her exactly why her daughter died. The line went dead. Min-jun sat in the car, his hands gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. His protection team had failed. Either they were compromised, or Choi's network was better than he'd thought. Either way, Naomi was gone. He took a breath. Then he made 3 calls. The first call was to his intel contact in the Federal Intelligence community, the man who owed him a blood debt from Busan. "I need you to trace a phone call," Min-jun said without preamble. "Made at 4:17 p.m. to this number. I need tower locations, relay points, everything. And I need it in the next hour. Park, I can't just. Your daughter was being hunted by traffickers in Busan when I found her. I saved her life. You said you owed me a debt that couldn't be repaid. Today, you're going to repay it." There was a long silence. Then, "I'll have the data in 40 minutes. He hung up. The second call was to the federal agents coordinating the Choi operation. His contact answered on the first ring. "We're pulling the plug," Min-jun said flatly. "Park, what are you? Choi acquisition is off the table. I'm withdrawing cooperation entirely. You can send your agents after him, but you'll do it without me. Without my evidence. Without my intel. Park, we've been building this for 2 years. Choi is responsible for. I know what he's responsible for." Min-jun's voice was ice. "But he is something I care about more now. And I'm choosing her." He hung up without waiting for a response. The third call was to his best men. The ones he trusted with his life. The ones who had killed for him without hesitation. "Naomi Drew has been taken," he said. "She's with Choi's people. I want them found. And I want her and her mother alive and unharmed. Everything else, casualties, collateral damage, the entire city burning, I don't care. But they come back alive." "Yes, sir. Where do we start?" "The intel is coming. The moment I have it, we move." He hung up. Min-jun sat in the car, surrounded by the city, surrounded by millions of people living their ordinary lives. And somewhere out there, Naomi was terrified. Somewhere out there, his mother's killer was preparing to use her as leverage against him. He thought of her face in that moment. He thought of her hand in his. Her laugh. The way she looked at his mother's photographs like she understood the grief. He thought of the choice he was about to make. Give up his vendetta, give up his mission, give up the 2 years of planning that had consumed his life, or lose her. It took him less than a second to decide. The Choi case didn't matter anymore. His mother's memory didn't matter. The years of planning didn't matter. She mattered. He sat in the car and waited. 40 minutes felt like 40 hours. Every second that passed was another second she was terrified. Another second they had her. At 4:55 p.m., the intel contact called back. "If you loved this story, like now. But comment, where are you watching this from and what time is it? And be honest, if you were Min-jun right now, would you have given up your mother's case? Or would you have gone after Choi while saving her?" "Don't scroll without answering." 3 possible locations, the voice said. 2 are too exposed. They're using those for low-level operations. The third is a warehouse on the waterfront in Long Island City. Building 47. It's connected to a shell company we've been tracking for months. Recent acquisition. High security. Back office on the 2nd floor. 2 guards minimum, possibly more. Min-jun closed his eyes. He knew that warehouse. Choi had owned it for 2 years, and Min-jun had been planning to raid it as part of the Choi operation. He had studied every detail, its layout, its security systems, its weak points, every entrance and exit. He'd studied it so many times it was embedded in his muscle memory. "That's the one," Min-jun said. "That's where they have her." He was already moving. Already grabbing his jacket. Already mentally shifting into the person he became when violence was necessary, focused, cold, lethal. He called his men. Warehouse 47 on the Long Island City waterfront. Position outside. 3 of you. Full tactical. No one leaves alive except the girl and her mother. Clear. Clear. ETA 15 minutes. Min-jun didn't hesitate. He arrived at the warehouse at 6:43 p.m. The sun was dropping below the horizon, bleeding orange and red across the industrial skyline. The building was nondescript, weathered, the kind of place where things disappeared. His men were already in position, weapons ready, waiting for his signal. He cut the power at 6:44 p.m. The darkness was total, absolute, perfect. His men moved into position on his signal. No radios. No communication. Just years of operating in silence. Min-jun approached the main entrance. The door was reinforced, but not impenetrable. He used a key because he'd studied this warehouse for 2 years, had been planning to raid it as part of the original Choi operation, and knew its every detail. Had been planning for this moment since he first realized Choi knew about Naomi and slipped inside. The darkness swallowed him whole. His eyes adjusted in seconds. Night vision wasn't needed here. He didn't need to see. He only needed to feel the space, the way he always did in moments like this. The way a predator feels its territory. The warehouse was vast and empty. Concrete floors. Steel beams. The smell of diesel and rust and forgotten things. His footsteps echoed as he moved toward the interior office where they held her. 2 guards were outside the door, smoking, relaxed, because no one knew where they were. Or so they thought. Min-jun moved from shadow to shadow, a ghost in the darkness. When he was close enough, he didn't hesitate. Speed. Precision. The first guard went down with a knife strike to the solar plexus that dropped him without a sound. The second guard reached for his weapon, but Min-jun was already there, using the guard's own momentum to drive his head into the steel frame of the door. The guard crumpled. Min-jun stepped over the bodies and opened the office door. The space was small, concrete, lit by a single fluorescent light that flickered with dying electricity. And there, chained to a radiator, her wrists zip-tied, her eyes wide with fear, was Naomi. For a moment, Min-jun couldn't breathe. The fear in her eyes. The way her body flinched at the sound of the door. The realization that she was terrified, in pain, and had believed, even for a moment, that he might not come. Min-jun, she started, hope flooding her voice. He didn't speak. Speaking was for people who still had time for words. He crossed the room in 3 strides and went to his knees in front of her. The chain was old, weathered. He didn't try to break it. Instead, he produced a key. The warehouse schematics had shown him where the maintenance lockbox was and undid the cuff from her wrist. "I'm here," he said. "I'm here and we're leaving." But there were more men. There were always more men. They came from deeper in the warehouse, 4 of them, armed with pistols and the confidence of people who'd done this before. One of them raised his weapon, aimed directly at Min-jun's center mass. "Step away from the girl, Park," the man said. It was Choi's lieutenant. "This ends now." But Naomi was faster. She'd been watching the door. She'd seen the men entering. And in that moment, as the lieutenant raised his weapon, she understood what she had to do. She'd spent 3 months learning Min-jun's world. She'd spent 3 months studying the way he moved, the way he thought, the way he protected what mattered. She screamed. Not in fear, but a sound designed to distract, to create a split second of chaos. The sound was primal, unexpected, and it worked. The lieutenant's aim wavered for just a fraction of a second. A fraction of a second was all Min-jun needed. He moved like violence was his mother tongue. The first shot went wide. Min-jun closed the distance in a way that seemed to violate physics, disarmed the shooter with a move that was brutal and efficient, and used the gun to drop 2 more men in quick succession. The 4th man tried to run toward the door, but Min-jun's men were already there, waiting in the darkness. They intercepted him silently. The warehouse erupted into controlled violence on the upper floors, other guards, other threats. But Min-jun ignored all of it. He went back to Naomi. "Your mother," he said. "Where is she?" They said she's in a car outside. They were going to use her as insurance if you tried anything. He cut her zip ties with a blade from his pocket, the same blade he'd used to save her 3 months ago on a street corner that felt like a lifetime away. She swayed as she tried to stand, unsteady from fear and confinement. He caught her, his hands on her face, studying her like he was authenticating her, verifying she was real and whole and alive. "I'm getting you out of here," he said. "I'm getting your mother. And we're going somewhere they can never find us." "Choi," she started. "I don't care about Choi anymore." He kissed her, hard and fierce, pouring everything into it, his love, his rage, his absolute refusal to ever let her go again. "He's irrelevant. You're what matters. Your mother's what matters. Nothing else." His radio crackled. "Perimeter secure. Warehouse clear. We have the woman's mother in the vehicle downstairs. She's asking for her daughter. Bring her inside," Min-jun said into the radio. He kept one arm around Naomi as he led her toward the stairs. Her legs were shaky, her body traumatized, but her eyes were locked on his. She didn't look away once. Her mother was brought to them on the ground floor, terrified, crying, but alive and unharmed. Naomi collapsed into her mother's arms, and Min-jun stood guard over them both, still holding the gun, still covered in the blood of men who'd made the wrong choice. "Is it over?" Naomi's mother asked, looking up at him with a mixture of gratitude and fear. "It's over," Min-jun said. And he meant it. The Choi case was gone. The federal agents would have to go after him without Min-jun's help. The years of planning, the vendetta for his mother, it was all ash now, less important than the weight of Naomi's hand in his. But she was alive. They were both alive. And that was enough. The penthouse was quiet. Safe. A place where a woman and her daughter could breathe for the first time in hours. Naomi's mother had been sedated by the doctor Min-jun brought in, exhausted from fear and trauma. She was sleeping in the back bedroom, finally safe. Naomi and Min-jun sat on the couch, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her. Neither of them had spoken much since the warehouse. There was too much to say, and words felt insufficient. "I gave up the case," Min-jun said finally. "Against Choi. I told the federal agents I'm withdrawing cooperation." Naomi lifted her head to look at him. "Your mother." "I know." He cupped her face in his hands. "But I realized something in that moment when they called. When they showed me those photos of your mother. I realized that I spent 2 years building a case against one man so that I could honor my mother. But my mother wouldn't want this. She wouldn't want me to sacrifice the living for the dead. You could still go after him. After this. Maybe." He kissed her forehead. "But not at the cost of you. Not anymore. You're more important to me than revenge. You always will be." She kissed him then, and it tasted like forgiveness and love and the strange grace of being chosen after being caught. 5 months after the warehouse event, in a space they'd created together, surrounded by stolen masterpieces that had been given a second life, Naomi and Min-jun stood in front of a Joseon dynasty landscape. The secret museum was complete. Naomi had curated his collection, helping him transition from acquisitions driven by business and revenge into preservation driven by genuine passion. Together, they'd created a space where stolen pieces could at least be properly cared for, appreciated, protected. "This one," she said, pointing to the landscape, "your mother would have loved." "She would have," he said. She believed in redemption. In the possibility of becoming better than what you were before. "Is that what this is? Redemption?" He turned her toward him. "No. Redemption is something I'll spend my entire life pursuing and never fully achieve. But this us, the museum, choosing you over revenge, this is grace. This is what redemption looks like in action." He dropped to one knee, and her breath caught. "I have nothing to offer you except danger and a life outside the law," he said. "A life that will never be normal. A life that will always require looking over your shoulder. But I have everything to offer you in terms of devotion. I will spend every day for the rest of my life making sure you know that you are worth the sacrifice. That choosing you was the best decision I ever made." From his pocket, he produced a ring. Not traditional. Not safe. A piece of jewelry that had itself been stolen, authenticated, and preserved. A ring that had a history of being desired and fought over. A ring that was finally, in this moment, being given freely. "Will you stay with me? Not because I'm keeping you safe, Not because you have no choice, but because you choose to? Will you help me figure out what redemption actually means? Will you help me become the man your mother wanted me to be? Tears ran down her face as she pulled him up, kissing him before she could even answer. I choose you, she said. I chose you the moment you appeared on that street corner and saved my life. I chose you when I realized you were investigating me. I chose you in that warehouse when I screamed to distract them. I'll keep choosing you every day after. I'll keep choosing this, us, this life, this love for as long as I'm breathing. He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her, and it felt like authentication. Like proof. Like the verification that some things, when you find them, are worth risking everything for. Outside the windows, the city lights blurred into streaks of color. The stolen masterpieces surrounding them seemed to glow in the soft light. His mother's favorite paintings. Her memory preserved and honored. But what mattered most was right here. What mattered was the woman in his arms, who'd walked into his world a stranger and become his reason to want to be better. Who'd authenticated not just paintings, but him. And in choosing her, he'd finally found what redemption actually meant. She'd found it too, in the choice to love someone dangerous, to trust someone who'd investigated her, to believe that darkness could transform into light. I love you, he said. I love you too, she replied. All of it. The danger, the darkness, the redemption. They stood there as night fell, two people who'd collided in violence and emerged in love. And somewhere in the city, the stolen masterpieces in their museum glowed like proof that beauty, once lost, could be found again. If this story captured your heart, like and share now. Comment, which decision was worse? Naomi going back to that apartment on Thursday knowing Choi was watching? Or Min-jun giving up his mother's case for her? And tell us, would you have made the same choices? Don't scroll. Answer. The end.